Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So Bud Light knocked out of the top 10 of America's most popular beers. Wow. It was a survey, okay? It's a survey conducted by YouGov for the second quarter of 2023. Shows Bud Light dropping from 9th spot in 2022. Okay. That was just... They were in 9th spot as the most popular beer.
Okay.
In a survey. To tying for 14th with Pabst Blue Ribbon.
They still make Blue Ribbon? Yeah, it really gets back to sales, you know?
Yeah, sales is what matters. Surveys don't matter.
Yeah.
It's what the actual sales
The good news is there are probably some bargains to be had on Bud Light and Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
Maybe soon Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
I saw their market value dropped.
Yeah.
I did see.
And this is ice cream season. You know, that's the thing. If you're going to just, throw your own company under the bus, do it during peak season.
I did see the one Native American chief came forward and said, "Oh, by the way, their headquarters, that's our land."
Yeah, right, exactly.
We have not yet been contacted by Ben & Jerry's about any type of negotiation to sell their headquarters back to us.
Well, and I saw
not sell their but give their headquarters back to us.
Right. Well, and I saw that they donated $1 million to the cause, essentially. But $1 million? No, give it all back.
Well, donate them. What, you're trying to buy them off?
Well, and wouldn't you give everything? Wouldn't you just say, here's our company?
Right.
Here's every belonging, everything I have of value.
If I'm a liberal, yes, I would expect that.
Yes. If you're saying we need to give everything back, well, then I expect you to be the first in line.
Right. That's not unfair to ask.
Right.
If you're asking the entire United States to dissolve itself, because I don't know what else. I don't know what else he's asking.
Ultimately, if you're going to do it, right, you want to do it thoroughly. I mean,
yes.
Don't go half measure.
And do it during the Biden administration. The Biden administration was the last presidential administration before we dissolve the nation because Ben & Jerry told us to.
Right.
Be great for the history books.
You give back your chunky and your monkey. If you're going to, you do the whole measure.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, that was just, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. That was one of the things that made me really laugh on vacation.
Yeah.
I just said to myself, my God, is there any, there's no self-awareness. There really is none whatsoever. I mean,
you even research that. Hey, what about our company headquarters? What about where we are? I mean, here's the thing. That shows you what? He's not really concerned about it.
No. I mean, the virtue.
Because
that's virtue signaling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were actually concerned about it, you would say, oh, my gosh, this might start with me. Hold on a second. What about the land my company is on? The company I co-founded. What have I done? Right? He didn't care about that. Clearly.
I'm sorry. I found that. And the thing is, and we had discussed it years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we would have, I forgot what it was. I can't remember. It had to do with something, similar to that. And we had gone through the history. I remember I remember doing the research and going through the Indian Wars
Mm-hmm.
and going through the number of just to stop that argument, because again, the left doesn't actually look. They'll take a part of history and ignore let's take 10% of history, ignore the other 90%.
Right.
Which may blow away our narrative coming from the 10% of history that we're telling you about, but we're just going to focus on one part of it.
Right.
And so Rich Lowry did, I think, a great point as we read it, a great article on it earlier, as we pointed out. But it's something that you and I did over a decade ago. It was a long time ago. I remember just doing the research for that and saying, okay, what land was here and who was there before it, what Indian tribe defeated another Indian tribe, pushed them off their land, and pushed them off their land means
there's been a battle for territory since the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. There still is today.
And the left, it's like whatever Native American tribe was pushed off when the Europeans came across. That's it. We only look at that. We don't look before that. Well, you can't. You can't be intellectually honest. You cannot be looking for morality in your viewpoint if you're not willing to look at the totality of the human experiences through different societies, which, again, have all done the exact same thing.
And it's not to dismiss any injustices along the way. There have been many.
Not. No, it's not.
But you have to ask yourself, okay, at this point, who was responsible? And that's what it comes down to. And we've had these conversations for many, many years. But it's thoughtless when you say it and you promote it and pretend like you're going to be the leader of it, and then all of a sudden realize that the company you helped to start actually is headquartered on the same land you say was stolen.
It's and that's the humorous thing. It's almost as if they don't realize, well, we own property in the United States.
Right.
Wherever we live. There isn't anyone in the United States who doesn't own a piece of property
that belonged to somebody else.
That belonged to somebody else at some other point.
Right.
And so and to not have that self-awareness, I think, is the fascinating thing. They are so into the virtue signaling that they'll leave themselves open to hilarious cross-examination down the road.
Right.
And not very long down the road.
Yeah.
So.
Right during peak ice cream season.
Yes.
Way to go, genius. Seriously. I mean, because he thought clearly, oh, this is going to help us look good. It's going to help me look good. Did you think it through?
Just going through the Babylon Bee. Ben and Jerry announced Native Americans may exchange white man's scalp for a free pint of Chunky.
Wow.
I mean, it's just brutal. What was the other one I saw? Democrats confused by parades where everyone wears clothes and don't swing sex toys around. And, of course, it shows the 4th of July parade.
Yeah,
right. Last week. But.
Yeah. Well, but we've seen that in years past about anything that celebrates America.
Yeah, exactly.
We can't be proud. We can't celebrate. Yeah, you can.
Well, I think, I think most people of reason look and realize that society of today is not like society of 400 and 500 years ago.
No, we've made great strides.
And we have made great strides, but you look at those people and you look at the founding fathers and the Constitution of the United States and understand the process and the evolution of what was there 200 years before, what was there during the Constitution, the Constitutional Convention, when we came up with the Constitution, and where we are today and what led us to this particular point. And you cannot look at, I know we're going back, but we weren't here last week, but you can't look at Independence Day and not recognize, like you can't ignore the Magna Carta.
Mm-hmm.
You can't ignore these things as if they were meaningless.
Right.
You have to understand that those were advancements in society and huge advancements in society that led us to where we are today.
Well, and when you live in the bubble of today,
there was no yesterday.
Then you have to ignore history.
Right.
And you have to rewrite history in order to create this narrative, in order to create a delusional place to live in. Then you've got to make history delusional as well. You've got to be delusional about what you pick and choose out of history. No one is trying to dismiss any injustices along the way. Have we improved as a nation? Have we improved as a society?
I don't think I don't know any conservative that would wish to ignore when you are because this is the thing. Well, conservatives wish to ignore history. That's the last thing I'd want to do, because if you're a conservative, you believe in individual rights.
Mm-hmm.
You believe in the autonomy of a human being. So you don't believe in racism. You don't judge people by skin color. So where we got to now, this is what the left tries to portray and Democrats try to portray, is it's Republicans that are racist and Republicans that don't want to see the advancement. Yet if you go into the ideology of the Democratic Party versus the majority of the Democratic Party versus the majority of the Republican Party, that the majority of the Democratic Party believes in identity politics.
Right.
They believe that you judge a person by the group that they're in. We're not making this up. The Democrats know it. Tim Ryan, when he ran against Nancy Pelosi, said that's the biggest problem they have, identity politics. What is identity politics? All blacks must be liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a conservative black. No, you're not truly black.
Right.
That's racism.
Yeah.
Because we view the autonomy of the human being. And as we know, anti-racism has become the new racism. Critical race theory, the belief that the culture of racism was so great for white people that they're all racist and we must structure society, that way. All of our laws must be based on the fact that whites are racist, which again is ridiculous.
Right.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
And if you're not white, you will always be oppressed, which is to say also that you can never
make it.
Right. That you can't do it without the government's help.
And the goal of what we have always looked for, which would be Martin Luther King's goal, autonomy of the individual. You judge them by the content of their character, and because we're in talk radio, the substance of their argument.
Mm-hmm.
But character covers all of that, really, because character is about, are you searching for truth?
Right.
And do you really believe in the autonomy of the individual? We do. So I never want to forget those times ever in our society where we did not view all people as autonomous, that we attached them to a group.
Right.
And then demonize that group, because we've seen what happens in the history of the world when you demonize groups, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
There have been enough life's lessons. So if you're a conservative, you've looked at those lessons that we have learned in history and say, no, I believe in individual rights. And believing in individual rights means you believe in the autonomy of a human being.
Right.
I judge them by them and nothing else.
Yep.
That's the ultimate goal and should always be the ultimate goal. And that's not the ultimate goal of liberals today.
Not even close.
866-90 Red Eye.
Like maple syrup on your pancakes and waffles? If so, the news from Lance Honig of USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service is lower production of maple syrup this season, a 15% year-over-year decline. He says the driver behind that is lower production in the major maple syrup production state. Vermont.
Vermont is far and away the leading producing state when it comes to maple syrup. In fact, this past year, they accounted for about 47% of the total taps across the country, nearly 50%.
The production in the Green Mountain State down 500 gallons from the previous year. Price and crop value-wise for maple syrup.
The new price and value information that we're publishing really tags back to the 2022 crop.
With maple syrup price down $1.20 a gallon year over year, and crop value up by almost $40,000 from the previous year. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report is made possible by Cenex Roadmaster XL Premium Diesel and Citgo Lubricants.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, since they just say 50 cent, can you say 50 cent now, or is it still 50 cent? The rapper.
Yeah, I get my coins mixed up when it comes to.
Then rapper
rap.
Curtis Jackson, also known
that
as
makes it easier.
50 Cent, addressed the Los Angeles crime crisis last week in response to the reinstatement of zero bail policy. Jackson shared a segment on Fox about the zero bail policy. He said, L.A. is finished. Watch how bad it gets out there. Shaking my head. Well, critics say the policy, which came back in May after ending in July of 2022, is spiking violent crime in the Golden State.
How could it not be?
I saw one, who was it, Barbara Lee, Representative Barbara Lee, saw one of the Sunday morning news shows, just asked about the economy. You willing to defend Bidenomics? Didn't say she was, just talked about how horrible the economy is and how bad inflation is, well, and how people can't afford to live in California.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, you didn't say Bidenomics stinks. You just said everything stinks.
Right. You didn't put it in Biden's corner, but of course it is. Yeah. And look, the whole bail reform policy was bound to end this way. Because when there's no fear that you're going to be behind bars for long, you're going to keep doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And expect crime to be on the rise, and this is exactly where it goes over and over again.
Well, I think it's very important for everybody to know, because sometimes you and I are one of our major beefs about Republicans and conservatives. You'll have the Democrats repeat the same thing over and over and over again, and finally you see that the public is buying into it.
Right, yeah.
And Republicans will come out and say, no, that's wrong, and then they're done. Mm-hmm. And as we stated, this fight that we have against the mindset and the behavior and the legislation that is wanted by liberals is something that you're going to have to fight for the rest of your life. Yeah, you see that even though they know crime is going to go up in Los Angeles, they don't care.
No, they don't.
What
are they doing about it in San Francisco? Nothing. Are they going to go in and vote a bunch of conservatives locally into office?
Nope.
Never going to happen. Not in our lifetime.
Nope. But on a national level, this fight is never ending.
No,
because you can see they're not giving up their insane policies.
Nope.
So good, you know you want to listen again with our podcast. Available on our app and at RedEyeRadioShow.com.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. You can listen when and where you want to the show.
And thank you.
At your time. You choose the time. Yep. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer sent a letter to the Secret Service Director on Friday requesting a briefing on the details surrounding the discovery of cocaine in the White House as the committee investigates what happens. The presence of illegal drugs in the White House is unacceptable and a shameful moment in the White House's history, Comer said in the letter. Secret Service uniformed officers last Sunday around 6 p.m. discovered a plastic baggie of white powdery substance in the West Wing during a routine patrol, which prompted an evacuation of the White House and a dispatch of the D.C. Fire Department hazmat team, who first identified the substance as cocaine. According to the Secret Service, the plastic baggie was found in a cubby at the entrance for staffers and official visitors, which leads to the lower level of the West Wing, which is near the Situation Room. That was not what was originally said, as we know, that White House officials insisted the area was heavily trafficked, but even MSNBC acknowledged that the area is limited. Comer wrote, the alarming development requires a committee to assess White House security practices and determine whose failure led to an evacuation of the building and finding of an illegal substance. The committee requests the U.S. Secret Service provide us additional information. The Committee on Oversight and Accountability is the principal oversight committee of the U.S. House of Representatives and has broad authority to investigate any matter at any time under House rules, he added, and said Congress funds the Secret Service.
Right.
So we also have accountability over that. What a cluster that is right now for the White House. The big moment was late last week when Karine Jean-Pierre was asked specifically by a New York Post reporter, is the cocaine, was the cocaine, I guess not owned by, but by possessed, was it possessed by any member of the Biden family? And she never said no.
Right, and there's the thing is that they know the answer right now.
They know.
They've known likely from the first hours that this occurred.
Right.
Likely before we knew anything about it, they knew who it was. It's not a huge mystery. You can pare it down to the probabilities that someone with, it comes down to someone with great access brought cocaine into the White House. Hunter's the first one that comes to mind.
And the reason is because he's had a massive drug problem, including cocaine.
And if it's not Hunter, then that person would have been found and fired by now. You can't tell me that this is some kind of massive mystery that will never be solved. They can trace this thing and could trace this thing from the very beginning. They understand who has access to the point where, to the location where it was found. And if it's not Hunter, that person would have been gone. So it's somebody with great access. One listener says, well, some cabinet members have access like families, but not to that extent. They may have a different protocol when it comes to search. The family has a very different protocol. So, regardless, they know. They know who it belongs to. And if they wanted to get ahead of this, because you would, if it wasn't Hunter, you would want to put somebody out there to demonstrate, hey, this wasn't Hunter, and this is the person responsible, and they were let go, even if you didn't name them. The person has rights. We're not going to put information about them, but they have been let go. Well, why can't they do that even if they were lying about it?
Well,
because everybody surrounding them knows that you can't do that, and they would know who it was.
And like everything else, they ooze of suspicion that they are guilty of something.
Mm-hmm.
By not answering any questions, the president hasn't answered any question on it, just smiles and scoffs or whatever.
Right.
Instead of the president coming out and stating, it's a very serious situation. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Did that belong to any member of the Biden family? Absolutely not, would be your response, right?
Right.
You haven't gotten that. What you've gotten is Karine Jean-Pierre. You got think about this. First, you got the Hatch Act excuse, which was completely and totally bizarre from the other White House aide, who said, well, I can't discuss it because of the Hatch Act. Hatch Act's got nothing to do with this. It seems that this White House has no idea what the Hatch Act is about.
Right.
Because when they violated it, they didn't know. And when they don't violate it, they believe they may be violating it. So apparently somebody has to give them a quick lesson about the Hatch Act. But you had that first. Then you had when Biden, did you see him when he was walking to the helicopter? I forgot what network I was watching it on, but they played the whole thing. He was asked about the cocaine, and he just kept walking. And the reporters are screaming about it, and he keeps walking. Why don't you turn around and say, yeah, I understand why you're concerned about it, because anthrax could get in or something like that, and that would be a concern because it is a white powder. And if that white powder got in, the security for the White House is extremely important. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to find out who did it. But no, it was not in possession of any member of the family, and we understand because one of the members of the family did have problems, have drug problem, which they have publicly acknowledged, and so of course suspicion goes there. But that's erroneous to have that suspicion, right?
Yep,
that's how you would answer that question. Yep. Karine Jean-Pierre, when she was asked the question precisely, was that cocaine? Did that belong to a member of the Biden family? Never said no. Said it's irresponsible to ask these questions because the White House wasn't here. Nobody from the White House first family was here on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. What's the first thing we find out? They were there till late Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So they were there Friday. So the first thing that comes out from the opposition is she's lying. Why is she lying? Not even getting to the point, well, it doesn't matter whether they were there. Did they leave the cocaine there at another time?
Right.
And how often is it checked?
Right.
But you think about it. It's been 8 days now. Well, okay, a little over 7 days because it was discovered.
Yeah.
Almost getting close to 7.5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And they're claiming they still have no idea, which means this security breach, as far as we know in the public, is still there.
Yeah.
That it's possible to do it again because we don't know. We've learned nothing on it, and we're told maybe by today we're going to learn something on it.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that was brought out last week, I went through the number of CNBC, audio cuts out there of CNBC saying, well, law enforcement officials or, our sources are telling us they may never find out. 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 And this was early on in that investigation. I'm like, who's putting that out? Why is that coming out that we're never going to find out? If we're never going to find out, which means nobody gets fired and prosecuted, then you've got to fire the head of the Secret Service.
Well, because if you say to me, in this case, if someone said on the inside and I were to believe them that we're never going to find out, what you're telling me is there's always going to be a cover-up.
Yeah.
That's why we would never find out.
Right.
We're very capable of doing very basic investigations here. It's not that hard. But you have to be thorough about it, and you don't want to be thorough.
And, just like at the airport where we go through whatever the new machine's called, and they can tell you've got something in your pocket. Doesn't matter whether it's metal. They can tell. They can see it.
Yep.
You have anything in your pocket, some small little thing? You ever have a clump of paper, like you threw your jeans or something in the wash, you left a receipt in there, it's a little ball of paper? They catch it.
It's not that hard to find out in this case. You have only a few possible people that would be responsible here. Only a few. Narrow it down.
I'm telling you, though, the timing of it, you sit there and you just shake your head, but you're just asking yourself, why is there no sense of urgency and concern from the White House about security breaches?
Because they're trying to build a narrative.
About the Secret Service. That's a legit question, which all points to in people's minds, they're trying to protect Hunter. Because who else are you attempting to protect?
Right. Tell me you're not.
Why can't you just come out and say, this is serious, and when we find out who did this, they will be prosecuted. Or they will be fired and they'll be prosecuted. Why can't they say that?
You've got a massive hole in security.
In security, one or the other. But still, whoever brought it in will be fired and prosecuted. They can't even say that.
No.
Why?
It's painfully obvious what has happened here. And they don't know how to handle it. Because in your answer, you would be forthcoming. You would be very deliberate in including exactly what you said earlier. We understand the direct correlation that people want to make given the addiction concerns of the past. That's not what happened here. And the person responsible is going to be found, and we will make sure there is swift justice. And that this will never happen again.
And everybody, you can tell everybody in the press corps, they're all like, what are you hiding from us?
Right.
Why can't you just be straightforward and say, here's what we're going to do? Why can't you say, that we expect this to be, why can't the White House say we expect felony law breaking inside the White House to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and we will fire the person who brought this cocaine in?
Right. Well, because you can't. Because Hunter.
Because it might be Hunter.
Right.
And even if he tells you, Mom, Dad, it wasn't me, we can't believe him. He's an addict.
Something tells me
that's what goes to people's minds.
They don't even care if it was him.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So where this goes will be interesting today and this week. To have this go this long with, nothing from the Secret Service.
Right.
And the response that you have had. And now, he's gone to Europe.
Yeah. In fact, was just on Downing Street, the president with the prime minister of Great Britain, and then, of course, the NATO summit on Ukraine. And it's going to be, I expect today, if we do learn anything, it will be the person responsible has been dealt with internally, and we will not be telling you their name.
Well, since they will be facing a felony, because that would be the thing, their name has to become known.
Yes, at some point.
At some point, right.
But they don't have to divulge it today. So if we learn anything, it will be a non-starter. And if you're trying to create a scapegoat with somebody else, if somebody else, if Hunter is responsible and they're trying to make it look like somebody else, you're not going to have somebody that's going to want to take a fall for this president on something like this. They'll never get hired anywhere again. So how do you make that work? I don't know how you make that work unless that person is actually responsible.
Yeah.
You can't make it work.
No.
This is Red Eye Radio on West.